Creating client projects in BQE Core. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's going to be pretty familiar if you've used our other products in the past like BillQuick and ArchiOffice. But as you've probably seen by now, we have a new layout. And I want to walk people through this because I want to ultimately walk people through every aspect of what it is that you can do in BQE Core. But the first thing we have to do, if we're setting ourselves up with it, is we have to be able to set up projects. And if we need to set up a project, we need to set up a client first. So let's take a look at my screen and see what BQE Core has to offer in terms of creating projects. And there are many names for projects. Some industries call it an engagement, like the accounting industry. The legal profession may call it a matter or a case. So let's quickly go to our settings. And we'll go to global settings. And scrolling down, you can see custom labels. And you'll see project here, which is where you can go in and rename what we call a project. Since we're sticking with the example of an accounting firm, we're going to stick with calling it an engagement. So if I go over here to engagements, I can click to add a new engagement right here. But as I mentioned, if we're going to create a new engagement, and assuming we're going to do it from scratch, then we're going to need to have their client on the books. Another thing that I found useful here, and let's cancel this for a second, is when you're doing this, duplicate the tab so that you can refer back to, for example, the first thing we were going to need to do is assign the ID for the project, but I don't know what the next available one is. So it's good to have the duplicate tab so I can look and see, okay, the next one is 5115. So now if I go to create an engagement from scratch, I can say 5115. Okay, and I can call this, and notice it puts that into the engagement name. So I can call it monthly bookkeeping. Okay, now I would choose a client. Let's just choose BQE Core. You can't create a new client from this dialog, so if I needed to do that, I could go back out here. Another good reason for having the multiple tabs open, right? And we go to contacts, we would add clients here. And let's try something. Let's say I was the new client. Okay, let's just see if we can save it real quick. Perfect. Now let's see if it's already in here. It is. I didn't have to refresh my browser. That's always good. Always a good sign of good cloud software when I don't have to refresh my browser to get a change like that to be reflected. Right? So let's say the manager is going to be Scott Jackson. Right? The originator, Scott Jackson. That's because my sample company, the user I'm logged in as, is Scott Jackson. Here's where we choose the contract type. Let's say it's $1,000 a month. Okay, and if we had a fee schedule set up for this, we could use that. I'm going to hit save and create the engagement. And now my engagement's created. And as I mentioned in the write-up, at this point I would take a minute to review the details, make sure that you've got everything set up exactly the way you want it. This is your chance to change it. You can go back and change it anytime. And now I really just want to walk you through the other pieces that you don't get access to while you're creating the engagement initially, like we did a minute ago. But now that we've created it, we have access to them, such as billing options. We'll want to go through this. Again, here we can set the fee schedule. If there's an estimate done, we can attach that or reference it here. If we wanted to create a budget, we're going to walk through in future videos how to set up all of these things. Right? Most of this is pretty straightforward. You can choose for this particular project what the standard invoice looks like, what a joint invoice might look like, and the template, of course, for a manual invoice, and you can put a standard footer message that's unique to this engagement or project. The invoice number, you can either do it custom or let Core choose for you. We can turn on automatic billing, which is really cool, by the way. And that doesn't mean it's going to automatically bill and send it to your client. You will get a chance to assign a biller who's going to get the chance to review it. It's just that you won't have to manually go in and click to, and remember to click things to organize the billing based on whatever time has accumulated. It will do that all. It will harvest the data for you and create the invoices, and then you can review them. tax and retainage. Accounts, again, project specific. You can choose different accounts receivable, income and expense, and so on. And then here we have our currency options. So again, you can do just as I did, scroll through these areas and make sure you understand it. This is more going to be for like architecture type projects where we might want to add phases. That's what the structure is all about. Rules and context, you have rules that you can add. If you click on this, you'll kind of see what your options are, right? And so you can create rules based on these different events that might take place during the course of your project. And over here is where you can add contacts to the project. So you can say, all right, I want John Dale in on this project, right? And then you can delete them if you decide you don't actually want them there. And then we have custom fields. We can add custom fields to be used throughout the engagement. And as you can see, there's different types. We can do basic text, a memo, a date-based field, drop downs, and then a combo box, right? So really, really cool features here in terms of what you can do once you've got an engagement or a project set up. Over here in the general drop down, you'll see more things you can take a look at. You probably won't want to look at performance yet. There's not going to be anything to show because there's going to be no transactions on this. Everything's going to be 0. Same with transactions, but you may want to go to the billing schedule and start thinking in terms of what that might look like if you want to create a billing schedule for this project, right? And this is just like in BillQuick. If you've used BillQuick, this is the same idea, where you'd establish what gets billed and when, and you can do it based on % of contract or however you want to do it. Moving right along, we can go look at the documents area. Maybe at this point we'd want to upload our agreement right to this area. And of course we can start establishing some to-dos, maybe some other things that need to be done by way of actually getting this project going, right? And then of course there's notes, which I'm the kind of person that loves to use this sort of thing, where you might want to set up some notes here so you can, well, make notes. Funny how that works. That, my friends, is what's involved in terms of initially getting an engagement set up. And as I mentioned in the write-up, the next thing we're going to need to do is go through how to create things like budgets and estimates and fee schedules for you so that you can understand how to put this whole kind of picture together and understand how to use every feature that exists in BQE Core. We're going to go through it all little by little, video by video, to make sure that I can give you this kind of stuff in bite-sized chunks. Last thing I want to do real quick is if we go back to our list of engagements, and since setting up a new project we can't really see some of this stuff, let's go into this and look at what the performance screen looks like when you actually have some data to look at. And I showed this to you in a previous video recently, but it's just so cool. In a click, it gives you such good information right at a glance, exactly what you want to know about what's going on with your project, with indicators to let you know, where there's trouble potentially versus where things look really good. So take your time, as I've mentioned, and I'm going to keep mentioning, go through some of these sample company data files that BQE Core has offered so that you can get used to the layout and get used to how it works and get used to where to go to do the things that you're going to need to do once you start working with live data in here. That, my friends, is what I can share with you for now on creating client projects in BQE Core. As always, if you have any questions, ask them. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our blog, post your comments and questions below or wherever you happen to be watching this. If you're on YouTube, check the description for a link over to the blog so you can read the write-up and get the whole picture. That, my friends, is everything I have for you today so far. As always, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you on the web.